it is the weekend. And when the weekend comes, in like the north wind, it's Michael Snyder. Or maybe the south wind. I don't know where. He's in L.A. He's in Hollywood.
Oh, are you saying I blow? What kind of thing is that to say?
Yeah, you blow. You blow.
Oh, man, that's just the word. I do blow hard occasionally, but like that cool jazzy theme, I'm back and I'm swinging with some good movies this week. And, I love the experience of going to the movie theater. And sometimes it's really worth the trip and sometimes it's not. We try to tell you when it is and when you can just sit at home and wait on something for your home entertainment unit. So anyway, let's start it out with The Martian, director Ridley Scott's highly anticipated science fiction thriller based on the bestseller of the same name and seemingly based on real science, and starring Matt Damon as an astronaut stranded on Mars when his crew takes off without him, thinking he is not going to be able to make it to the ship. And it again stars Damon, with Jessica Chastain, Kate Mara, Kristen Wiig, and Donald Glover, normally considered comedians, and certainly they have a light touch here. They're in this movie, which is not a comedy, although very, very witty. Jeff Daniels, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Sean Bean, and even the Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan. This is exciting, witty, and intelligent stuff that's probably scrupulously researched for verity. And it's sheer bravura from director Ridley Scott, who has been in outer space before. Aliens, you remember that, the Alien movie. There's never a dull moment here, even with long stretches on the surface of the red planet. And, it made me think at first of old movies about Mars and Mars exploration and Mars adventure. The Angry Red Planet, the laughable Mission to Mars. But this is more like a mix of Robinson Crusoe on Mars, a pretty cool but often forgotten science fiction film from the 60s, and Gravity, a more recent movie that used contemporary special effects to give you a you are there feeling. We see the astronaut, as against all odds, he tries to survive on the harsh surface of the planet. We see the NASA people, executives, government overseers, scientists, computer jocks as they try to deal with the situation and maybe bring him home. And we see the crew in the spacecraft that left him behind as they cope with their guilt and the challenge of getting back to Earth themselves. This is visually stunning, emotionally moving, and a lot of fun. Really a hell of a trip, and you can see it with or without 3D. I'm sure the 3D will enhance the experience for some, but I think it works just fine on a flat surface, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean the surface of Mars. I really thought The Martian was good. And equally exciting for me was The Walk. And this is a docudrama about the daring and maybe crazy French wire walker and street performer Philippe Petit. And this movie is like the greatest carnival ride ever. And it puts Disneyland Space Mountain to shame because it actually reproduces on the screen his insane attempt to illegally walk a wire between the World Trade Center towers in the 70s. I mean, there is no way in hell anyone with any kind of good sense would try to do something like this. But we see Petit and his group of conspirators as they put this together. And in that, it's like kind of a heist movie. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Petit, and I think he's a terrific actor, and I'm glad to see him in a role like this. And maybe some people will say the French accent is a little much, but it didn't bother me. And I have to say, this is so intensely thrilling in the last third of the movie that it's one of the most immersive and accomplished feats of filmmaking in memory. I mean, the visual trickery and CGI and 3D are largely, probably responsible for this feeling, but it is so effective. I mean, brutally so. And I will also add that this film is not for the faint of heart. It is so immersive, and if you do see it in 3D, I sat there and my lower body was like, vibrating with adrenaline as I was watching this thing. It's directed and co-written by Robert Zemeckis, who did Back to the Future and many, many other films that you know and love, and some that you probably don't, like Forrest Gump. But he does a great job here. Ben Kingsley plays Petit's mentor back in France. Charlotte Le Bon is the woman he hooks up with and becomes one of his co-conspirators. Everybody's great. Loved the walk. The beginning, people may not be as crazy about, but I really enjoyed the whole ride, and the end is worth the price of admission. All right, we got to have a clinker here. Shanghai has been sitting on the shelf, I think, since 2009. It is a Chinese and European, Canadian, I don't know, it's a co-production and sort of a film noir look at an American spy in Shanghai as World War II ramps up and the Japanese threaten to invade the city. It stars John Cusack as this spy type who has as a cover being a newsman and a newspaper man, and he comes to Shanghai when his best buddy and fellow spy goes missing, and he wants to find out what happened to him and who's responsible for whatever violent act took this guy out. And despite a fascinating locale and volatile historical period that I love, and an impressive international cast. I mean, in addition to Cusack, the femme fatale is Gong Li. One of his adversaries is Chow Yun Fat. Ken Watanabe plays one of the Japanese invader types. Franca Potente, Hugh Bonneville from Downton Abbey, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, David Morse, even Gemma Chan from Humans in a small role, and phenomenal art direction and cinematography. But somehow this thing is dull and boilerplate stuff. I really wanted it to be good, and I can see why it sat on the shelf as long as it did. Mikkel Hafstrom is the director. Shanghai, big disappointment to me. Okay, He Named Me Malala is an intimate documentary about the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai, who was targeted by the Taliban and severely wounded by a gunshot when returning home on her school bus in Pakistan's Swat Valley. That's the short form. It's directed by Davis Guggenheim, who did An Inconvenient Truth, and this movie is just so powerful and moving, and such a wonderful look at human courage and the ability to go beyond tragic circumstances and try to do something great with a life. The girl is so smart, and pre the shooting, this is a lovely child, and to even think about messing up a kid like this is like a high crime. And the fact that she has spoken out and has been in the news and out there traveling to disenfranchised locations in the third world to help encourage education for girls, and has not worried about her own life and safety as she's done so. I mean, the truth is, she and her dad and her family relocated to England for her safety after she recovered from the shooting. But she is out there, and she is the face of a movement that will hopefully change the world. And that's why she's been awarded the prizes and laureates and what have you. Fantastic person, and very worthwhile movie to see. Labyrinth of Lies was a little disappointing to me. It's basically about a German journalist who, 20 years after the war, decides to actually prosecute some of the people in his home country who have done some horrible things during wartime, people who don't know about Auschwitz or care about it. And this guy just decides to go after basically criminals, war criminals in Germany, and he is rebuffed by his fellow Germans. Let's say rebuffed is a kind word. It's a little on the dull side. I wish it had been a better film, but Labyrinth of Lies does tell an important story. So if you're interested in history, it gives you more detailed, honest, and heartfelt history than Shanghai. Let's put it that way. Drunk, Stoned, Brilliant, Dead, the story of the National Lampoon, is basically a history of the famous humor magazine that spun out of the long-running Harvard University publication and became a cross-platform media success and helped midwife the original Saturday Night Live cast and the Vacation movies and so much more. And this is a very funny, entertaining, well-made documentary that uses visuals and graphics from the magazine and the various Lampoon films to tell its story, and you get all kinds of interviews, talking head stuff, and you don't necessarily get some of the way things fell out at the very, very end of the history of the magazine and its offshoots, but you do get Chevy Chase and Judd Apatow and Kevin Bacon and Beverly D'Angelo, John Goodman, Christopher Guest, and a lot of the other people behind the scenes like Al Jean, John Landis, and Harold Ramis. You get everybody on the screen. You get a lot from Maddie Simmons, the publisher. I thought it was a lot of fun and pretty entertaining. I didn't know a lot of what I learned while watching the film. I do recommend it. And we'll wrap it up here with Finders Keepers, which is like a crazy documentary about an amputee who wants to hold on to his amputated leg, but he leaves it in a grill in a storage space. And then in one of those sort of like the documentary type TV reality shows where a guy can bid on an unclaimed storage space, another guy gets a hold of the leg, finds out the history behind it, and begins showing it off as if in a carnival. So this is part portrait of two American lives, a real story. It was probably in the news in a lot of markets back in the day. I guess it's from about 8, 9, 10 years ago the story started. But it's part crazy reality show and pretty entertaining and ultimately sad. You know, class war, delusion, addiction, disappointment at the wages of fame and its fleeting nature are all part of this thing as we see what a recovering addict and amputee John Wood does when he wants to reclaim his leg from this guy Shannon Wisnon, who is basically trying to hold on to it as his own property. Believes that it's his because he bought it at an auction. Anyway, I enjoyed it very much, and that's about it in the film. Any TV stuff going on? And any movies have you seen?
No, I'm gonna go see The Walk this weekend. That's about it. I haven't seen any movies, TV. People can lay their hands on it. HBO has a good documentary by Andrea. Is it Andrea Pelosi? Who is Nancy Pelosi's daughter, called San Francisco 2.0. A damning appraisal of what has happened to San Francisco. But that's worth watching. Anything else? Not really.
I do want to give you a bit of a warning about The Walk. If you are prone to acrophobia or quick to be nauseous at heights and things, it is really something.
Well, then I'll throw up on the person in front of me.
Yeah, eat lots of popcorn.
Anyway,
that's it.
That's about it. I can't think of anything else. I mean, the new TV shows. I'm still enjoying the ones I did enjoy, and not particularly enjoying anything new. So that's the way that goes. Too bad.
We'll leave it roll. I'm still hopeful for a few things, and in the meantime, you can check me out at Twitter at Culture Blaster, one word, and on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast. That page can be liked. You can link to Alex and myself chatting and read articles and whatever.
That's it. Thanks, Michael.
You bet.
And stick around, because Gabnet can I talk straight? Gabnet continues.